Staghead Logging, a logger's tale. And I'm Mike of Staghead Logging. Well, it's wet and rainy and laid off, and we got all this COVID crap. So I thought, well, let's do something a little bit different. You've got all these YouTube channels out there, and you've got these great shows. Paranormal Portal, Sasquatch Chronicles, Mike Isdell with howtohunt.com. And they're all bringing out Sasquatch experiences and any other kind of experiences. I recently been listening to the Confessionals. Tony, he's freaking awesome. Anyhow, I'm just throwing something together, and but mine's specifically loggers. I'm hoping loggers, wives, or brothers of loggers that have stories of loggers. I don't know. We'll kind of play it by ear and see how it goes. But anyhow, tonight I interviewed Seth. Seth, this is crazy because I've been working in the same 50 miles of this guy for the last, 8 to 10 years since we moved to California from Oregon. And I've never met him. And I knew his brother. I was at logging camp with his brother for 10 months and just never actually got to meet Seth. But I know his brother Kurt, who's a badass guy, good logger, been logging all of his life. Same thing with Seth. Seth's been logging all of his life. He's a good son of a gun, and he's got some interesting stories to tell us. And I don't discount a word he says. Anyhow, folks, this is a little bit something different. I hope you enjoy. So let's fire it up.
Yeah.
There he is. Well, what I was kind of wanting to talk about was, just first of all, it's about, my channel's about logging and everything crazy logging. So anything from stories to paranormal to Bigfoot stories to everything. So I thought we'd just include anything you wanted to chat about and include in there, how long you've been logging and that kind of stuff,
Okay, well, it's been a while. I'm 54 years old and I've been in the woods since I started logging when I was 14 years old with my dad. My brother was preoccupied with some jail time, so my dad hired me in the summer. Even took some time off of work, off of school, and so my first paying job was 14 years old, bucking behind my dad and learning to fall timber.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed with that my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's nothing more rewarding.
Well, no, you get to eat a picnic lunch every day.
That's right.
So,
and you don't work with the public.
I don't do well with the public.
Yeah, most loggers I know don't. That's why we do what we do. I really wasn't a very good cop.
That's why when I knew logging was going to come to a slow stop at some point. It'll never stop, but it's going to get whittled down to a few. So I started buying heavy equipment and a little piece here, a little piece there. Learned to climb trees and all that stuff, and so make a lot more money taking residential trees out than logging, but I still carry my logging license.
Yeah, your LTO, yeah. Well, do you have to have a D49 in California to do tree work too, or?
Yeah, you can. It's easy though to grandfather in when you have that much time. All you got to do is pass the law segment of it.
Oh, gotcha. Perfect. I was thinking about it, but I never did do it.
Well, actually, our Governor Brown, the only good thing he ever did, in my opinion, is because of all the dying dead trees and fires, he went ahead and made it so that anybody that is a licensed timber operator, they can do a certain amount of tree work on that license, which is dead, dying, or burned trees.
Right.
Dead, dying disease.
Yeah.
So I'm fully able on, the log that I at one point had two different insurance companies because logging didn't want to do, the logging insurance wouldn't do residential.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Residential didn't want to be involved with logging. So I had to become incorporated at one point. I just kind of whittled that down and said, hell with that. That's,
Yeah. And just do what you got to do.
actually, just last year is when I started thinking about that after being being insured for both for over 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, why don't you? So you said that you had an encounter, something you never actually saw a Bigfoot, but you had some sort of encounter with one, didn't you?
well, I ran it by. She was like a wife. We never married, but I knew her for 20 years. And I just had dinner with her tonight, and I told her about you and what you're doing with your website. And I brought up the subject of how we were driving up this mountain to go find a place to camp, and it was just during like the biggest lightning storm they had in northern Idaho at that time. And I said, do you remember the smell of that, whatever that creature was? Whatever the smell of that creature was that we passed by. And she goes, yeah. And I said, do you remember the fear it brought into your heart? And she said, yes, I do. I just wanted to get out of there. I don't know what that was, but it smelled like a combination of a homeless man and possibly some cave-dwelling bear. And I let her know that I've smelled a lot of bears, and I've never smelled anything like that. I've been around moose and elk and caribou and all kinds of animals, big game animals, and nothing ever smelled like that.
Yeah.
So driving up the road, finding a place to camp, and we come by a ditch with a big berry patch in it, and that smell just encompassed the whole vehicle and the whole area, and it wasn't the smell of dead, decaying anything. It was a smell of, in her words, she goes, it was a smell of death and evil. And that's about all I can say. I never encountered anything like that before. No, what I find interesting is the small amount of research I've done and just watching programs and such. There's a lot of law enforcement that are coming forward. There's as far as like Bigfoot sightings and stuff like that, and also there'll be retired colonels and stuff like that are coming forward with UFO things.
Oh yeah.
Stuff they know is not of man.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, and with the Bigfoot thing, I've even seen interviews with game wardens that they know what's out there. They've lived their life in the woods.
Yeah.
When a retired game warden, or just even a younger game warden, who goes on to another job, because once they hear that you've seen Bigfoot, you're done with your job.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, so other than that being the most severe lightning storm I've ever been in my life, we per my wife's decision and my own common sense, we went 4 to 5 more miles of the road and found a place to camp and just stayed away from that area. And I definitely was sleeping with my AR-15 and my 10 millimeter.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't go anywhere without them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So so when was the first? So you had some paranormal and some UFO stuff that you were telling me about earlier. When was the first time you had a UFO experience?
Well, as a small child, 7, 8 years old, out in the mountains by the coast with my dad stayed on the job in a trailer during the week, and my mom would go out there sometimes Friday night, and we'd stay the weekend and stuff. And I remember going out towards the coast here in Northern California, and my mom going, "Look at that! There's something landing on the hill over there." and there was nothing over there to land for, in the middle of the night or early morning. Sometimes we left at 3 in the morning so she could get to work. And so she saw strange things, and I really didn't know what to think at that age. And then around 12, we were driving north of town and saw this giant explosion in the air. It was just incredible. It wasn't like a trailing thing. It just was an explosion. Not a comet, not a meteor, nothing like that. There was no trail. It's just the biggest explosion I've ever seen in the sky. And no word of it. I did stick with that one. I was around 12 and checking things out, and I kept asking my dad, "You hear anything in the paper?" No. So, it's been around. I heard about people. It would be ignorant to think that we're the only life form in our universe, and there's so many different universes that even scientists are finally coming to the thinking that there's definitely,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely other Earths out there, and there's other.
Well, Trump, he just declassified a bunch of stuff in the CIA within the last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, dumped a bunch of stuff into a thing called Black Vault. You can Google it, and you can actually download files and read files from the CIA.
Yeah. I know, it's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming out, but I think it was about 5 years ago. I was at my yard. It was pre-daylight. The sun was still below the mountains. It was getting a little lighter in the sky. It's in the actual date is in the Press Democrat. I'd have to look it up. And my nephew, of all people, said he's looking over my shoulder and his eyes got big, and he goes, "What the hell is that?" And I turned around looking to the west, and we see this long, I would just say it was a vapor trail. I don't believe it was in our atmosphere. I believe it was in outer space. It's just it was really wide at the back, narrowed down, kind of like what you would see with a comet. So I grabbed my binoculars and I'm looking at it, and he's videotaping it on his cell phone, which of course didn't come out very well. And what I see is, I couldn't imagine how long it was as well as I could see it, but it was a long tubular shaped object, and it had, I would just say almost like a rocket booster, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't supposed to happen the way it was happening. There was one shooting out one direction and one shooting out the other direction, and it was causing it to turn in a clockwise manner. And it was emitting this giant, miles and miles and miles long trail behind it.
I'll be damned.
Which was illuminated by the upcoming sun.
Wow.
And I gave the binoculars to him. He verified what I saw. And the newspaper, the Press Democrat, said that, and my dad, who reads it every day, said that you guys are crazy. It was a meteor. Well, there's no elongated, tubular shaped meteors out there.
Right.
And just for them to say that it is definitely a meteor lets me know that something's up.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say it was a fuselage that was tumbling. Although, why wouldn't they say that in the news? Why wouldn't they say, well, we had to launch him? That's a fuselage.
Yeah, and it exploded or something. Yeah.
It was so far away. If it actually was out of our atmosphere into the upper atmosphere, it would have had to have been, maybe a half a mile long to see it.
Right. Right.
Just guessing. That seems kind of lucky. But hey, what do I know? And then the other experience I told you about it. Being on the only access road into a property, and and hanging out with a buddy of mine having a barbecue, and we see this big bright light up on the hill, and it was moving. At the time we saw it, and we, instantly go, somebody somehow got in here and drove by us, and they got these giant lights all over their vehicle. We hop in the truck and drive up the road, and we're breaking tracks through tall dry grass, which a deer couldn't walk through without you being able to track it. I've been tracking my whole life. Used to go along as an assistant on guided hog hunts for 20 years, and with the licensed guide, so I've tracked animals my entire life. I was taught to track when I was very young, and I've tracked blood trails on quail and found them. I don't like anything getting away. So
10-4, yeah.
We drive up there to confront these poachers, whoever the hell they are, and there's no tracks. There's only one other road up the hill, and it's all blocked off by brush and dirt, debris, and there's no tracks there. And we pulled around the bend, got out from these trees, and 50 yards away was the brightest light I've ever seen in my life. And it was just all encompassing and all illuminating. And I just remember saying, because I always figured if I saw an alien craft, I'd shoot it. So I told the guy, I said, let's shoot it. And all of a sudden my arms didn't work. And I remember us backing up. And then the next morning during breakfast, I had a flashback of the night before. And I told the guy, I said, do you remember going up on the hill and the thing we encountered? And we started talking about it. He goes, oh my God, I didn't remember. And I asked him what he remembered, and he says, well, I remember you saying, let's shoot, why don't we shoot it? And I couldn't reach for my gun, and all I could do is, my body automatically put the vehicle in reverse and turn it around. And then he goes, I don't remember driving back down to the house. I said, me neither. So we went up, investigated, and there was no sound that night, just the light that went in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to describe it, if I had to quantify it, I would say that it was the burning bush that Moses was instructed by.
Right.
I could see how first century man would see something like that and not be able to incorporate any kind of thinking into it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Bush.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. That was weird, and that comes along with three people that I know personally that are not insane. I wouldn't say they're insane. That had seen lights going in and out, or up and down and around the mountains there.
Yeah.
And, and these guys had many other, and even their children have many other experiences in that same area with these small demon-like creatures that were chasing their vehicle. And the kid, who at the time was 12, was yelling and screaming and crying at his dad to speed up, they're catching us.
Wow.
And it was really like these 3-foot tall, weird-faced demon-like creatures is the only way he could explain it. And he wasn't into religion or anything.
Yeah, right.
And he's going, Dad, they're catching us. They were running, 10 miles an hour on a dirt road.
I'll be damned. Wow.
Yep, and so he was into the, what was the name of that? Those beings that you mentioned earlier?
Oh, the Nephilim.
Nephilim, yeah.
Yeah.
Nephilims.
Yeah. That's kind of, I'm leaning towards Nephilim on the Sasquatch end of things, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I mean, but I do believe that they do go in and out of another parallel universe type thing,
Or a portal.
Yeah, portal.
Or maybe they have that ability, and they're also able to just cloak or chameleon.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what I, after listening to some of those other shows that I've been listening to, that's kind of like what I saw. What I picture them describing is what I saw in my patrol car that night. Something cloaking, going from solid mass cloaking, but you can still see the movement, but you can almost see through it. I guess the best way to describe it is like on what's that? Predator, exactly. Yeah, the alien on Predator. Yeah.
I just watched a program the other night, and this lady had seen lights in the sky. She was on a deer stand somewhere in the Midwest, up in a tree, waiting, until it's too dark to see to shoot. And she said she saw these balls of light flying around in the air above the trees. And then she said all of a sudden it was like she was looking through a prism, and she saw this thing, just like a predator, jump from one tree to another.
Mm-hmm.
And went around the back of the tree, and when it came out around, she could see the prism like, just like a predator. You got to wonder where they come up with these ideas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember Time Magazine came out with a sketch of a stealth bomber.
Oh, yeah,
and then, lo and behold, a couple years later, they released that they had that exact item.
I think I remember that. I think I remember something like that. Yeah.
And all the sci-fi stuff that we see, it's all like coming to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There is a hint of truth in every myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a reason it's there.
Oh, absolutely. There is.
One time I was out on the coast working. And I'm working away, and I'm thinking about nothing but work and maybe my home life and stuff like that. And I'm out of gas, so I start fueling up my saw. Fueled it up, put the caps on, stood up to take a walk uphill, and I had this creature, and I can't really explain what it looked like. It was scary. It was big. It was huge. Just appeared right in front of me, running directly at me. Now, maybe if we're talking about parallel timelines, it had ran through there many times. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it was there to wake me up, or I have no idea. Was it bad just because it looked bad? I don't know. But it ran through enough that I dropped my saw and ducked to my knees. And I stood up, and 25 feet or so in front of me, the bushes are still wiggling, and whatever it was that appeared instantly vanished instantly.
Right.
But it shook me up pretty good for the rest of the day.
But you couldn't actually make out what it was. It was just a huge dark figure coming at you?
No, it wasn't. It had a face. I saw its eyes. I saw its mouth and teeth. It had, I would have to say it had pig-like teeth coming out, but not just like bottoms and uppers. It had like multiple bottoms coming out to the side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was scary looking.
I'll be damned.
What it was doing there, was it my imagination all of a sudden? And okay, so I thought about that. Did I just imagine that? When you see there's no wind and this one bush that something you think you just saw come out of is wiggling still, like flashing, like violently flashing, then I gotta wonder about that. But I've seen so many things in my life that it just didn't really freak me out.
Right. Well, hey, what about that photo you sent me? What was that? Tell me the story behind that.
Yeah, you can probably include the picture on that one.
Oh, that'd be great.
I got some. I can even disclose the area.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Got some friends that live up at the ladder on Mill Creek Road.
I know exactly where that is. I was just up there working. Yep.
Yep. And one of my buddies went outside and said, "Hey, bring your camera. Come out and look at this. This thing's floating in the air." And so there's I've got extra shots of it. You can see the power line. You can see the trees. It was clearly, as someone who flies, I have powered parachutes, tricycles.
Oh, okay.
And, so I've been up to 9,000 feet. I know what 9,000 feet is.
Yeah.
This thing, the camera brought it in really well. I'd say just from the video, the photographic evidence that I've seen, I would think that it was somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 feet, maybe. If not, it had to be super huge.
Right.
And that's a possibility. It might have been 10,000.
Right.
But they went out, and the time frame on the phone, on the picture stamped on it, was 3:30, p.m. And it just stayed in the same place. Because in the photo, it kind of resembles a weather balloon. Now, I don't even know if they use those anymore, and they don't use them around here.
Right.
Way too high for an air balloon. Way too huge for somebody's drone. Way too glowing or anything practical, anything that we have. I don't know what it would be. And so they kept taking photos, and they'd go in the house, and they'd come back out, and then be in the same spot, and they'd watch it for 20 minutes and take another picture. And so at 5:40 or 5:45 from 3:30, it was still there. And actually, I thought it sped off into the sky, but I called and checked on that, and the people said that they just got bored and tired of watching and went inside.
Oh.
And so I'm sure there's other photos of similar objects or identical ones out there. I'm going to do a search.
Yeah.
2 months ago, believe it or not, a buddy of mine in Cloverdale got a call from his neighbor, and his neighbor said, "Hey man," he goes, "you believe in aliens?" And my buddy, he's out of the Army, U.S. Army. He said, "No, not really." And he goes, "Well, go outside and look up."
Right.
And he said, "Come on." So my buddy goes outside and looks up, and there's 3 shiny orbs. He said they were kind of like copper up above the house in the sky, and he doesn't know how high they were. They were, they were up there quite a ways. They were up a quarter mile or so, half mile.
Yeah.
And but if they were larger, it's really difficult to tell what you're looking at. So he walked out and he looked up and he goes, "No shit." And this is a guy that doesn't believe in anything like that. And he called me scared to death. And said, so he went back in and he got his mom and his wife, and he said, Mom was visiting, and he said, "You guys got to come out and check this out." And they went out, and they were there, and then they just went, phew, and they were gone. They disappeared in just a flash, and then they came right back.
Oh, damn. Wow.
And this guy's mother said, this is only a couple months ago. This guy's mother said, and I believe him. I believe this guy. He did have a Bigfoot experience with one of his military buddies, but he said, man, he goes. Then they came back. My mom went and got in her car and left. He goes, and as soon as she shut the door and drove off, they disappeared again. And he says, and then I just went back in the house because my wife was scared, and we stayed in the house.
I'll be damned. Now, this was in the same place as that other one?
It's within, as the crow flies, it's within 3 miles.
Yeah, so up above, so within 3 miles of the latter area.
No. This was within 3 miles of the UFO bright light sighting that I had.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Which is hard to call it a UFO sighting because it was just traveling above ground level when we saw it.
Yeah.
And we never saw it leave or show up. We just saw it come along the ridge line like it was driving on the ridge line.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, clearly.
Right.
And the other guy that saw it with me was the caretaker for this property for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows the terrain.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, my family's owned the neighboring property for over 60 years.
Yeah.
And so we both know the only ways in and out of there.
Right.
But
I'll be damned. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I've heard other encounters, other people seeing lights like that and not being able to explain it either, and actually going and looking for them, and there's no way for those lights to be in or out of there.
No.
And then they're just gone.
No.
I had actually my best friend who drives bull wagon now up in Oregon. He was a deputy sheriff with me, and then he left the agency and went to do his own thing. But he was telling me of one time he was driving on Highway 26 over there, and he had a light paralleling him. And then every time he'd pull over in a wide spot, it would stop, and he'd take off again, and it'd take off with him. Then it just kind of disappeared behind a hill and didn't come out behind when he kept going.
You gotta wonder if they're just curious,
Oh yeah.
or if maybe they let down their guard and didn't know that they uncloaked.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
There's so many different scenarios that, I mean, there's multiple things happening. I don't think they're all connected.
No.
I think we've got different forces at hand here. We've got, I hate to say good and evil, you know?
No, I don't. That's what I say. We got good and evil working against each other all the time.
Yeah, I know, but...
Just like our elections.
Yeah, right. I know. But if you say good and evil, then it's like going to an AA meeting and having to say the Lord's Prayer to some people.
Yeah, right.
Even though it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and people start discounting you too when you start talking like that.
Yeah, so you don't want to go, you know, I'm a believer.
Yeah.
I believe, I've heard people say this before. They said the God of their youth is not the God of their current adulthood. And I'm thinking, well, God doesn't change. Our view of God changes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
I have a friend who's a pastor, and he's an awesome guy. He doesn't charge for his pastorship.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to hear this, like the stealth story photo it was a sketch. He was living with the heroin addict, and lo and behold, a couple years later, he's an atheist that they had living with a heroin addict. But he didn't do drugs. They had that.
Right.
He did a little bit of drinking sometimes, but not very often. He was just a somewhat normal guy. There's nobody that's normal. There's
No, nobody's normal.
normal. But he's a, you know, he was a Marine.
Oh, good.
His dad was in the military. He was in the military. This and that and the other, and so his heroin addict buddy was a Satan worshiper, and he was so anti anything after life that he just kind of laughed and said, all right, whatever, man, just keep that to yourself and away from me, we're good. He said, and so the guy always had candles going and stuff, and he was always doing chants. And you talk to people that think they know what Satan worship is about, and they'll tell you that Satan worshipers don't believe in Satan. It's just a game they play. Well, that's bullshit, because I worked with one, and he worshipped him, and you know, I mean, daily, every day, all day long. Anyway, back to my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So they were having a couple glasses of beer and wine, what have you, and there's 4 or 5 candles on the table, and they were new ones. And he kind of fell asleep there. His friend left, and so he's home alone. And he said he woke up, and the candles that were out ignited. They lit up.
Holy shit!
The whole table was full of lit candles, and then all of a sudden, like a giant wind came in, a whirlwind, and ignited the table on fire. The candles didn't fall over or anything, and he said it was just embers and stuff blowing around it like a tornado, and it whipped its way up and down the table.
Wow!
And he said he ran out of that house and never went back, and all of a sudden he wasn't an atheist anymore.
Yeah, imagine he knew there was something bad. There's got to be something good.
He figured that, and that's exactly what got me into the knowledge of good and evil as a 7-year-old. Or well, how old would you be in 3rd grade?
Oh, you probably probably 7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me at 7 or 8.